All right, so welcome to the Take Your Health Back Now podcast. This week we are talking about actually a couple things, but we're going to start out with testing, kind of the difference between conventional testing and other testing, and then pros and cons of that, why you don't necessarily need it, but why people want it. And then just kind of into root cause and the idea of functional medicine and how that's really varies across the board. And then our idea and how our program pulls those things together.
Right. And the problem is the noise in this space.
Yes.
This health space is getting louder and louder. There's more people that are waking up to the fact that conventional medicine is not helping chronic illness at all. That's one thing that's been good about these last 5 years with the whole COVID thing. People are finally waking up to that and realizing that it's not capable of helping them. But what happens is, you woke up to that. You want to get out of the conventional system. Oh my gosh, hold on. That's my dog. Sorry, I forgot she was in here. So, they want to get out of conventional medicine, but then they start researching on their own. And we've seen this for a long time. So that's not new. But what's new is that once they start researching on their own, they get very overwhelmed. So maybe this is you, maybe you can relate, because there is so much. You've got this expert saying this, and then you've got some other experts saying this, and they contradict each other. And then you're in some Facebook groups with a bunch of people with chronic illness, and they're all saying different things. And then, then you've got all these people saying, use this device or use this treatment, and it will, balance your body and you'll be healthy, or these drops or this thing. And, there's there's just so much. And then
There is. And I feel like another part of the noise that's recent is people are used to their conventional process. They're conventional practitioners, right. That process of I'm dealing with something, so then I seek someone out. They need to give me a label so that I can have a pill or a surgery. And we get that label through testing. And now people are taking that train of thought and trying to apply it to like functional medicine and naturopaths and all these other labels, because they're seeing these different types of care, but there's no like definition for them, so they're not really sure. Like they look at it like it's different, but they don't know why it's different, so they're trying to apply what they know to something that's completely different, and no one is explaining it to them.
Right. And the other thing is that so say functional medicine, because that's, kind of our wheelhouse. Like Jenny said, you could have 10 different functional medicine practitioners here in this room, and everyone could be practicing differently.
Right.
That causes a problem with people too, because, well, first of all, people used to come to our office because they're looking for functional medicine. That's how people kind of found us in the first place. Now I've noticed there's kind of a new trend where people are they're still in that conventional space, finally realize, they're just fed up because it's not working for them. They're not getting answers. And then they're coming to us kind of a different route. So they don't even know about functional medicine, or you hear the people that knew about functional medicine, and kind of like what Jenny said, or with the 10 people, they've tried other functional practitioners, but it didn't work for them because they were practicing still kind of treating symptoms rather than addressing the whole underlying cause. And then it didn't work for them. So now they're skeptical, they're leery, they don't trust it. Plus they're fed up, so that there's a lot of that now in this space where it wasn't before. So we just want to kind of, or we're not want to, we will in this podcast, just kind of lay it out for you, that hopefully it gives you more information on all the things like Jenny said with the testing, and we'll go into a little more in depth, just so that you can feel less frustrated and you feel more confident, and then moving forward and picking what is right for you.
Right. You can use this knowledge to take action, and then you will be empowered.
Right, exactly. Because that's the whole thing. And I wrote, I always have statistics. I like statistics. But so I was looking up 2023, obviously, because that was last year. So 90% of the total healthcare spending, and this is in the United States, not the world, this is United States, is chronic illness. So anyone that is having an autoimmune condition, cancer, just weird chronic illness, fibromyalgia, GI issues, all of the things that we always talk about, that's 90% of the total spending. That's
right.
And the thing is that all of that didn't have to happen in the first place. It's all preventable. So
that 10%,
$4.5 trillion.
That's crazy. That's so much money. That other 10% should be like, it should be flipped. Like conventional medicine should be taking care of acute illness or accidents. Like if you get in a car crash, you need conventional medicine. If you break your arm or, these kind of things that are in the moment, you need that provider to put everything back together and say, okay, you're alive. You're not broken anymore. And then you need to focus on wellness. So all of these chronic, this 90% is really, they're doing disease care or injury care for someone who should be focused on wellness care. And that's why it doesn't work. And that's why you're stuck in the cycle. And that's why you keep spending money.
Right. And always remember that a sick person is the best way to have a lifetime of income for those companies.
Right. And we're not saying that every doctor is out there just to make money off of you, but our healthcare system is screwed up in many ways. And the people at the top that are making the rules, that are telling the doctors what to do, are there for money. That's what they're there for. They might not be the person you're seeing one-on-one, but there's somebody in your medical, downstream or upstream, however you want to think of it, who is just there to make money off you.
Right. So the pharmaceutical companies, because they are a big one for that, 2023, this is 1 year, you guys, 1.6 trillion with the T dollars they made. The pharma industry, $1.6 trillion. Then here's the other issue. Okay, so with conventional medicine, they are all about prescribing medications, right? So they do the testing we're going to talk about so that they can give you a medication or a surgery. So that's where the pharmaceutical industry $1 trillion came into play. So the other thing that they do is, where did I write it down? Oh, here. Preventative, it's preventative measures. So that would be like a surgery or a endoscopy or a mammogram, or, all of these testing that they do, which we'll talk about. That is 395.8 billion in last year. So think of the money coming in for this. Okay. Then the other thing,
if these statistics are how much was spent or how much the companies profited.
Right. Well, I had typed in the pharma industry made.
Yeah. So this is probably what they're
spent. Yeah. So
there's probably not a huge difference, but imagine these numbers as simply profit for these companies and not what people who are sick are spending. Like that would be even more.
Exactly. And then the other one, okay, so people are trying to go more natural now. That's getting, people are waking up to that. But then they go into supplements. And then when you get more of the natural testing, a lot of some functional testing, diagnostic testing that's still coming from a natural approach, they're still treating symptoms because they're saying, okay, well, you're deficient in this, this, and this, or people try to figure it out themselves. That's a big one.
Right.
And so the supplement industry last year was $177 billion industry.
Yeah.
With the
That's
B.
crazy.
It is.
And, supplements have a place in like wellness care, a natural lifestyle. We work with people, we have supplements for them, but they need to be a supplement, not a solution.
Right.
And what Kendra is saying is a lot of even natural approach, that is the solution. You just say, I'm low in XYZ, so I'm going to take the supplement forever. And you stop and you don't look at why or make any changes other than taking that supplement. And you have to go that step further.
Right. And again, it's still treating a symptom. So
Right.
it will still make you feel better in the moment because you are supplementing what you were deficient in. So that is obviously going to make you feel better. But what are you going to do if you can't get them? What are you going to do if you want to stop them? That's a lot of money going out every month. What, you're going to quit taking them. Now you're going to feel like crap again. You'll probably feel worse than you did before because whatever was causing you to be deficient is still there and now probably worse at this point. And then what was the other? And then I wrote down too, medical error deaths is third in the country for leading cause of death is just medical errors. And so the reason I wanted to write that down is because even like what Jenny said in the beginning, when people are starting to realize conventional is not working for them, they're coming into more of the natural space, they're still looking for testing, they still have that mindset. So I've talked to so many people lately that even though they're getting that, they still are going in for like a colonoscopy, or they're still going in for this or that to see if they have something. But colonoscopies are a big cause of death because it can puncture. I mean, it's invasive. Anything that is invasive to the body, which could be a test like that, a surgery, anything that is invasive, that's a physical stressor on the body, and something can go wrong. So just kind of keep that in mind too. That's crazy. The third leading cause of death.
And just speaking from personal experience, I feel like a lot of that, like medical, I don't know if it's all considered malpractice or error or whatever, is not actually listed in those statistics because the institutions or the providers that are involved try to make it not an error, or you agree to something, or it's something that is so far away from that issue that it can't like get tied back. So I'm sure that those numbers are probably higher than what is even reported.
Much higher.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that comes into play, and Jenny has had experience with this, and so have I. So if two people sitting here have not us, but family members that passed away because of this, the statistic is very high. But what happened, I think, in both of our situations, the family member, like this happened to my dad. And so my stepmother was told, basically it wasn't their fault. My dad just died. So can you imagine what she's going through? And it was abrupt and, that kind of thing. And they're just like, they don't want to deal with it. They don't pursue it. And so, so it never becomes a statistic, but it's happening.
Right. And in my case with my sister, she did pursue it, but it was, so the medical error that happened, it was hard to pursue it, but she had to because of like bills and things like that. And then they did a settlement, but it was one of those things that it was like, she probably should have gotten like representation of some sort instead of just going with what the hospital gave her. So it covered like her bills, but then from there, she got very, very sick, later on. It wasn't that long after, I think it was like a year. And all of her doctors for when she got leukemia said, yeah, that time that doctor punctured your colon and then they had to cut out pieces and that was in your blood and that probably triggered this, but you're never going to be able to prove that in court. Plus, you're in the hospital for leukemia now. So, and she did pass away from that. She was cancer free when she passed away, but because of all the treatments, her organs just couldn't keep her alive at that point. So, that was never tied back to that initial thing, but it was very clearly tied back.
Right. And that's another issue with chronic conditions that everyone's experiencing. And something like that, even with, these VAX, I won't say it so that we don't lose our podcast, but, injuries that are happening, sometimes it happens immediately. Like what happened with my dad probably could have been pursued because it happened immediately. What happened with your sister was not immediate. These VAX injuries, some happen immediately, clearly tie it back. Others, it's long-term, it's chronic. So anything that's chronic, and that's with the medications and everything else too, they're adding that problem, they're causing this problem. But you can't, when it's chronic, it's so hard to hold anyone liable because it's just out. And it could be so many different things. So it is hard to tie it back. So anyway. The only other thing I wrote down is right now is what we deal in and what we're talking about is chronic illness, right? Chronic conditions, chronic disease. It's all the same. However far you've gotten with your symptoms and if you have a diagnosis now. So 6 in 10, this is 23 again, 6 in 10 Americans now have a chronic illness.
Right.
And I wrote down that number is on the rise. But again, that's people that have they've been to the doctor, they have a diagnosed chronic condition. So it's probably much, much higher than that. But even that statistic, 6 in 10 people, that's insane. That is so high.
That's why all of those money numbers are so high.
Exactly.
Yes.
So as we're talking, just keep that in mind. And if you're watching this, you probably are experiencing symptoms and probably know this, but just remember that it is preventable in the first place. You did not have to get to this place that you are in, but now that you are in this place, it's still okay because unless you have so much damage done to your body, you can still turn it around.
Right.
And prevent it from coming back.
Right. And even if you have so much damage or you're missing parts, because you went through with that conventional approach of, oh, you're having some issues in this area, let's just pull out that whole organ. Maybe that's what you did because that's what you were told would fix things, and it has not. You can still get better. You are not going to regrow those missing organs. So you may have to supplement or, be okay with, being 90% for the rest of your life because that's how much of you is left. Right. Anyway, so even if you are at that point where it's been going on so long and so much damage, you can still get better. And we're not saying you can't get better. You can't have a good quality of life. We're just saying we may not be able to get you 100% back.
Right. Yes. But you can always get better.
Yes.
Always. Unless some people do get to the point where like motility issues within the gut, that seems to be getting more common where it is so damaged.
Right.
It is just not moving. But again, think how long it takes you to get sick. It takes decades. We talked about this in the last podcast, if you listen to it, decades before you even have symptoms. Right. So really nowadays, it's your whole life. What is happening to us around us, what we're doing to ourselves is your whole lifetime adds up to this. So it takes time for healing. It just does. And it's taking a longer time, but you can still heal. The body can always heal itself. Like even here's a good example. Okay. So we talk about a lot of times if you break your arm, it's a bone. you're still going to heal, right? They put it in a cast to hold it straight, keep it so that it's not getting damaged further. It's going to heal faster than if you never get a splint or it's set at all. Because if you don't have that cast, you're going to be bumping into things. It's going to take longer, but it's still going to heal because your body is constantly healing. So anyway, but okay, as far as the test goes.
I know. I was just thinking we're like 20 minutes in and we've hardly even talked about testing.
Very important. So, okay, so you are experiencing chronic symptoms of any kind, right? And now, because you have that ingrained in your mind that you need testing, that's what you're told. So if you go the conventional route, like we mentioned, they are just looking for something so that they can give you a label, so they can give you medication or surgery, period.
Right.
If then you want out of conventional medicine, you're still looking for testing. A lot of the testing is still in that same realm. So we're getting a lot of questions about Dr. Mark Herman has this new membership. It's like $500 for a year and you get 100 tests. But so we looked into the tests he's offering just because we're hearing about this, but it is still line-based tests. So the 100 tests is one item for each test. Like for instance, our stool test, just the stool test is about 75 tests in one test. But what he's doing is just a one line item test. So, you know, maybe it'll check your liver function. Maybe it'll check your thyroid function. It's going to check for inflammation, for deficiency, you know, things like that. And then they'll give you a report on that, which is information.
Right.
At, you know, the dysfunction going on in your body, which is good information. But for someone that is truly functional the way we are, where it's really addressing what's causing all of this, that information doesn't help us on our end, if that makes sense. It helps you, you know, that's something you could do now and then address the whole underlying root cause, which can be thousands and thousands of things affecting your body. And maybe do those tests again a year later and just see where you are. That's okay.
Yeah. A lot of people like data to give them concrete, like it helps with goals because you can like say, I want to improve, you know, this percentage overall health, you know, and then you take action towards that. So then to prove to yourself that your action actually did make change, even though you know it did, to prove it, you could get those tests and have that data. And a lot of people like that. It's motivating. It's good for a certain personality type for their mindset. But like Kendra's saying, it's not a requirement. Like you don't need to know these numbers to make change, and you don't need to see the numbers improve to improve.
Right. And they don't give you a plan of action.
Right.
The plan of action will still be like, you know, here's where you're deficient, take these supplements. Maybe your body, maybe you have a genetic predisposition where you can't eat high histamine foods, so avoid those. You know, it's not giving you a plan to fix anything. It still might make you feel better. It's that same idea where it's treating the root or the branches of your tree, but not fixing anything, if that makes sense. To put a plan together for true healing of the body and then true prevention is very involved and very deep. So anyway, those tests won't help with that. The other kind of testing that everybody is caught up in is this genetic testing. Everyone thinks they have to have genetic testing, and they're doing a lot of that on the natural side of things too. But again, you know, if you listen to us, you've heard us talk about this a lot, the epigenetics. So yes, you may be genetically predisposed to something, and that may come up on a test, genetic marker, but again, that doesn't really help you unless you address what caused that mutation in the first place. And if you do address that cause of that mutation, then you can turn off that genetic marker. That's epigenetics. So 95% of all chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic conditions is diet, lifestyle, environment related. 5% is genetics, and genetics almost always can be turned on or off. Not always,
Yeah.
But the majority, that 95%. So again, genetic markers, it's not helping you. It's giving you information, not transformation. There's no plan once you get
And
that testing.
I feel like a lot of the genetic stuff, somebody just wants to be like, aha, I'm right. Like most of those predispositions or like familial issues that are going down the line, you already know. Like you innately see it happening. You may be predisposed to these things because there's a huge sample size in your family that is not normal. So and then I you get the test and you're like, see, I'm predisposed, but it doesn't do anything. You still stay in that same lifestyle that everyone else in the family is living. Now you're just worried about it. Or you maybe get like a surgery or a medication. Like they're saying, you're predisposed to being overweight. So now just get on these weight loss drugs.
Gosh,
You're
that
yeah.
well,
We'll get way off topic if we jump in. Well, you're predisposed to breast cancer, so let's just do mastectomy now, even though there is nothing there, but genetically we've proven that you're predisposed. So instead of looking at lifestyle change and actually turning that marker off so that you're not passing it on, you're just, conventionally doing something in the moment. So in order to be healthy, you have to address what happened, make a change, turn that marker off, and then you're passing that health down the line instead of that disease.
right. And I talked to somebody this week that seemingly has been healthy. She's about 70 years old. She got genetic testing because her daughter, I think because of genetic testing, found out she had cancer. Like early stage cancer. And she went through the whole chemo treatment and I don't know what all else. And then, so this person I'm talking about, she had genetic testing and it showed she was 50% possibly could get cancer. So I think, again, the conventional medicine, they kind of scared her into feeling like, that 50%, that could go this way or that could go that way. So she had a full hysterectomy because there's percentage for everyone though, because of what's going on. I mean, they're just different. So anyway, that made her feel better. But the problem is that now that she had one of these medical errors. So now she has a twisted colon and she's having all kinds of issues, GI issues, severe stabbing pain, all of this stuff, now it's a structural issue because of that.
Right.
She hadn't had the genetic testing or hadn't opted for that hysterectomy, she wouldn't have this. And now she's probably going to have a lifetime of, one thing after another because they can't seem to help her with now this issue.
It's just crazy how just taking out an organ, first of all, that is a major surgery. You're going to have negative side effects. You're just going to, they might be short term, but you will.
Right.
And then this, like where things are in your body, they hold each other up. Like, things go together for a reason. Otherwise we'd be, everyone's organs would be in different places. And that doctor, that's not their job. Their job is just to talk about this one chance of possible cancer of this organ. Their job is not to talk about, what you're going to deal with structurally afterwards, because they've gotten rid of the chance of that thing. So they're not looking at you and trying to keep you well. They're just looking at that one thing that is in their field. And then if they've stopped that one thing, then their job is done and they accomplished the goal, right? They don't talk about these overall issues. And for her, she was older, so she probably is not going to have hormonal issues, but they're doing hysterectomies on people who are so young, and they don't talk to them about what that throws your body into hormonally. And there's major issues on that side, but they've solved that one problem by doing that. And then you're left to deal with all of these, like the fallout of it.
Right. And then there's still no well, what caused that in the first place? What can you do?
Right.
Still no plan. Like I talked to someone this week that was 29 and she had a full hysterectomy when she was 22, which threw her into menopausal symptoms, which, you know, if you listen to us, don't have to be there. So they took out all her lady organs. And now she's got, you know, the mood swings, the anxiety, the sweating, the night sweats, the all the things that you hear about that comes with menopause. And she's so young. And it's just like wrecking havoc on her life. And then the crazy thing is that the reason she had it taken out has come back anyway. And now she has this, and now she can't have children. And I mean, think about the impact. Whereas in the beginning, if they would have said, okay, let's try this foundational work, let's fix that underlying root cause that's going on in your body, and let's fix what caused that in the first place, or with the genetic mutation, let's fix what has been happening in your family for the last 3 years and change that, or 3 decades, I was going to say 3 lifetimes, generations. Anyway, so there's still no plan. It spurs you, you take action that you should never have taken in the first place. It causes more and more problems, which keeps you in this cycle. And then the thing with functional testing, a lot of functional practitioners, and this is where then it didn't work for people, and now they're very leery of working with anyone else.
Right.
And it doesn't even have to be functional. It could be a naturopath. It could be, you know, there's lots and lots of new people in this space.
Right.
Which is good, because we're doing a shift away from conventional medicine. So it's actually really good that there's more and more health coaches. That wasn't even a thing 20 years ago.
Right.
But the problem is that if they're still treating the symptoms with their testing, that root cause is still going and going and going. And you've got, you know, systemic inflammation, you've got these GI issues, and all of this stuff is going on and creating more and more symptoms, which now they can do more testing and then give you more natural treatments. And it's crazy. So there aren't very many people that do like what we do, but that is truly the only way to turn this around, to eliminate your symptoms, because you're now healing, and then prevent anything from coming back. It just is. Let me see my notes.
Yeah, and we do offer some functional testing if you want it.
Yeah.
But like we said, it's not a requirement, because we can help you come up with a plan based on wellness without it. But the data can kind of jumpstart, it can give you more insight so that your changes happen faster. But we can get you there without it. And some of that is because we, in our clinic with our clients and patients, did do a lot of testing prior to now. So we have a good like data set of what shows up. And surprise, most of the things that cause chronic illness are the same. Like there aren't that many things that are outliers that we would be like, oh, wow, that's so weird that that showed up on your test. No, it's like, yes, I'm psychic. This, and this are going to show up because these are the root causes of chronic illness. They're just showing up on each person's tree with different symptoms, but those roots are the same.
Right. And they do go very, very deep. And that's the other thing, that it's hard to find someone that not only addresses the root cause. You know, there are a lot of these words too. That's another thing I think I'd written down. There's a lot of words that kind of flow off people's tongues right now, and they don't really know, but they're becoming more commonplace, like root cause. People hear that all the time. They're like, oh, you're just another one of those. They talk about root cause. Yeah, I get it. Or, you know, what else? What's another one? Chronic, functional, you know, all of these things. So it's good that people are starting to hear them. It's not new anymore, where it used to be. When Jenny and I first started, it was so new that nobody was so hard to get through to anyone, because people are like, okay.
But the thing is that you had to give people a really good explanation, because they had never heard of it. So then if they were interested, they took the time to understand. So part of the problem right now is that these words are becoming more common. So people aren't understanding them. They're just like, oh yeah, I know what that is. And they're not taking the time to really understand it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword right now. I'm sure that just because, new things, they become very popular and then they kind of settle down. So hopefully we'll move to where people kind of understand the meaning behind these a little better. But it is good the more people are hearing it.
Yes. And eventually we'll move to where people understand it enough that they're able to do this all on their own. They don't need any help, but there's just so much. So for instance, maybe you work with this functional person or holistic practitioner that did testing for you and they're addressing the root cause. They work with root cause, but it's okay, you're deficient in this, you have this, that's the root cause, which it is. But then we always go deeper. But what caused that?
Right.
You always have to keep going deeper and deeper. Yeah, but what caused that? And then you get down to, okay, and what we see across the board all the time, we see GI issues like infections in the gut, leaky gut, dysbiosis. You've got inflammation that's gone systemic through your body,
right.
Mitochondria dysfunction, all of these things. And that's truly the root cause of what's happening in your body. Your lymphatic system is not working. Your pH level is lower than it should be, which causes this problem, this problem, this problem. It goes really deep and they are all causing problems. And just, it's like having a fire in your body and you're throwing gasoline on it. And maybe you get these supplements because you're deficient. That's like putting a little water on it. So it douses the flame a little bit, but it's still growing and growing. And if you don't address on top of the dysfunction, if you don't address what caused that to happen in the first place, that's constantly coming in. So that's constantly throwing gas on your fire, if that makes sense. So your fire, which is the dysfunction, which is the inflammation, all of these things I just mentioned, will never go out unless you also address the causes that cause that in the first place. And that's what we do. And that's what most people don't do. And that's really the only way to prevent ultimately. It's one thing to heal and feel well, but also to prevent any more symptoms, any chronic disease in your future. Right. You have to do that. That's just as important. So it's a kind of a twofold, and that's where most people aren't focusing.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure that we'll get to that point, but it's so new and people are kind of grasping at straws. And then the other thing is, even with like nutrition, okay, people are starting to understand nutrition is more important, but even that space, there's so much noise. Should you be vegan? Should you be vegetarian? Should you eat this? This is bad. Somebody invited me to be in a Facebook group this week that was on bioengineering. So I'm like, oh yeah, I love that topic. But in the group, it's all people like what we're talking about. They're searching for answers.
Yeah.
They don't know where to turn. Everybody in there is like, what about this product? And then you've got 25 people giving you their advice on it. It's all different. It's all wrong. And so I had to take myself out of the group. But it's just people don't know. There's so much. So,
right. And sometimes you get 25 people that know one little piece of it.
Right.
So they're not giving you a whole answer. And then you're getting 25 different pieces that other 75% is missing. And that makes it even more confusing because if you get something that's just a little bit right, maybe it makes you feel a little bit better, then you're like, but what am I missing? Maybe I just need to do this one thing more. And then you get like, we help people understand what their change is going to be so they know what to expect, so that they know that they're going in the right direction. And if you don't know that, how can you make any kind of plan? How can you keep going with something? You're going to end up being very common. What we see, you're going to try this and you're going to try that, and you're going to learn about this and you're going to learn about that. And you probably have some really good pieces of information, some really good pieces of, this preventative health lifestyle but you can't put it together. And eventually you're just gonna like give up on the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, because you might feel a little bit better, then all of a sudden symptoms come back. That was something I was going to mention too, because I've heard this a lot this week is, and this happens with people doing their own research and maybe working with somebody or, trying different.
Those tests that just give them little bits of answers.
Right. Autoimmune conditions, chronic disease, chronic symptoms, whatever you're experiencing tends to ebb and flow.
Right.
And so you'll be having a flare up. That's another common term people use a lot. I'm having a flare up of whether it's fibromyalgia, endometriosis, GI issues, whatever it is. It's gotten really bad. And then so they'll be researching, trying different things, and now all of a sudden it's better. So it gives you the false illusion that you've done something that made it better. But then, maybe 2 more months down the road, all of a sudden it's there again. And then people are frustrated because they can't correlate. Well, what just caused it this time? I can't tell if it's food. I can't tell if it's something I did or something I breathed in, and then it'll be there for a while. They can't figure it out, and then it's gone again. So it's always kind of like a fluid ebb and flow, like an ocean with these symptoms and chronic disease. And that's why too, I hear a lot when people say, well, I used to have that, but it's gone. And then now they've got this, but it's all the same what caused it. And then, and another thing to mention, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but always remember with autoimmune conditions, and again, that's a diagnosis. That's once you've gotten in far enough that they were able to label it, but they always come in pairs or triplets. So if you have Hashimoto's, you've got something else or a couple things coming up behind.
Right, because your body doesn't work like each system is not in its own little box. They're all tied together. So if there is dysfunction that you've noticed in this one area enough to get a label, there's dysfunction everywhere else because that's not just functioning by itself. There's other things breaking down, or there's other things that you just didn't know were symptoms of something else. So now that you're in there getting tests, you're going to get more tests, so you're going to get more labels. So that's why they're always pairs or triplets, because they can give different names to all these different symptoms, but it's all the same underlying cause. It's really just one issue. You're just living the standard lifestyle that causes dysfunction. Like, that's it.
Right. And if you all of a sudden feel better, but you haven't changed what caused those problems in the first place, you're going to have something else creep up.
Right.
And then I did just want to mention, okay, so we started out with testing. That was our whole thing. But just remember that, like Jenny said, you don't need the test. What we do is based on years of clinical data, scientific research, patterns, client-patient outcomes, and we see the same thing over and over and over, just like Jenny said. So we know what causes the dysfunction in the body. And we also know from decades of research what causes that dysfunction. So that's all you need. So you don't need the test, you don't need all the things, but you do need a plan to know what, so that you can fix these. And anyway, but that is what we do.
Testing can help.
Right.
It can move things along faster. It can help your mindset and your motivation, but it's not a requirement. Lifestyle change and a plan are a requirement.
Right. And I one other thing on the testing that I wanted to mention, because we hear this a lot too. So testing it used to be, there wasn't, there was functional testing. It was very hard to find. Mm-hmm. Now everybody's got testing. They test for this, we test for this. It's so common.
Right.
But you see so much testing that is so inexpensive. But people don't think about the fact that if you truly take the test results and dig deep and put all that information together, it takes a lot of work and a lot of years of experience to even put that together. So it can be expensive. Yeah. Just, if you're paying $500 a year to get 100 tests, they're not putting that information together for you. No. It's just something that anyone could read and see. So just kind of keep that in mind too. So you're kind of paying for what you get when it comes
Right. The value in testing is the interpretation of it. You know, if that wasn't true across the board, then you wouldn't need to go to a doctor or a specialist to get the test. You just get it and you'd read it yourself. But the value is in that interpretation and then the action afterwards. So that's where you should be investing. That's the value. The person reading it, not the test itself.
Yes. And I think that's the main things we want to talk about, right?
That was just the main idea. We got to 46 minutes.
Okay. The only other thing I did want to mention, it kind of goes along with testing, the words that are so common, but also there's so many alternative treatments now in cases, like red light therapy, super popular right now, and these scans and these beds that you lay on and it reads you and then it heals you. There's so much of that. Anything that seems like it's easy or a quick fix or too good to be true probably is. But all of those things are helpful. I mean, a lot of them, I'm sure all of them are not, but something like red therapy, yes, that can be helpful. Yeah. You also still have to do that foundational work that is the problem in the first place. If you're just doing red light therapy and never change anything, it's not going to help you. And we've talked about this lots of times, but people get so caught up in that and they kind of forget. So I just wanted to reiterate. And I did want to say it is extremely expensive to be sick, and an investment in the short term to get well and prevent, future dysfunction might seem expensive, but it's so much less expensive because that's an expense in the moment, to take.
Right. It's kind of like the difference between acute and chronic injury or illness. Like if you add up all those little drips over your lifetime, what you're spending on being ill is huge. Right. But the system is set up so that you're generally not paying that all at once. Sometimes you have a big expense pop up because of conventional care, but most of the time you're paying a premium, a deductible, a copay, and then you have an expense, but they're letting you, no interest payments, pay it off. Then there's the things that you don't really quantify and they don't want you to quantify, like lost work, quality of life, prescription medications, and you're not really quantifying the cost of that. There might not be like an actual bill, but there is a cost. When you right,
it's a huge cost.
It is, and people don't. They're like, but I have this insurance that I pay for, so it covers things. But think about how much you're paying for that insurance. It's not making healthcare free. That's not how it works.
Right.
If it was, it wouldn't be this trillion, bajillion, decillion industry that, we went over the statistics on. So it's really about thinking about the overall cost and the value as an investment in your future.
Right. Exactly. So remember those statistics in the beginning. The whole idea is to keep you out of that.
Yes.
Your money in your pocket, so you're not adding to those, what was it, 1.6 trillion with the T dollar industry,
Right. So, and a lot of people are required to carry insurance, or you get, like they're like, I have to have it or I get taxed. That cost is so insignificant compared to what you pay for being sick. Like you can have a high deductible plan that doesn't cost very much, even if you're not going to use it, just to have it there. It's still less expensive to be healthy.
Right. And the other thing with insurance is if you get really sick, say you get cancer, you go through all of these treatments, which actually end up costing you quite a bit, even if you have insurance. Well, then all of a sudden your insurance premium goes up. If you have to,
and you can have a lifetime limit, like they can just stop covering stuff.
Right. They can stop covering. You may want to switch insurance companies. People won't take you because you're costing them too much, so that's something to consider too. But anyway, hopefully kind of breaking this down will help you decide, when you're taking action for yourself, when you're empowering yourself and making decisions on really healing and preventing, maybe it will help you move forward in this
Right, and
space.
help you understand where to put your time and money to get the most value back out of it.
Right, definitely. And always know that you can turn it around. You can eliminate your symptoms.
It can get better. There is hope.
Right, but you have to take action. So hopefully this was helpful today, and have a good, wonderful day.
Yeah, we are going to try to do these podcasts again every Friday now that we're beyond summer crazy times.
Yes. Yes.
So if you are in our Facebook group, you'll get these live. You can interact with us. We had a couple watches today, no one commenting. And then if you're not in the Facebook group, we always push these out a couple days later, and you can watch them on our YouTube or listen to them wherever you do podcasts. Subscribe, like, share, all of those things. We appreciate it.
Yeah. And if you ever have a topic that you want us to talk about, reach out to us and we will definitely consider talking about it. Yes. Because we like to know what people are wanting to know about and what's going on in your mind, what's holding you back, because we want you to move forward and feel better. That's the whole thing. So yeah, definitely reach out. So we'll see you next week. Bye.